Shalom. I want to give all praises, blessings, glories, and honors unto Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shai Bahashim Racha Kodash, and double honors to my elder apostles and bishop elders of Great Millstone who have taught me this truth, as well of men of like mind. Shalom wa chasad to the elect of the nation of Israel, whom I used to call Negroes, Latinos, Native American Indians, and Israelite foreigners of the seed of our forefathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, whom are scattered here in America, which is Babylon the Great, and abroad. To you I say Shalom, Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ratasa. This lesson is edifying. Ezekiel chapter 7, verse 25. Destruction cometh, and they shall seek peace, and there shall be none. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 3. For when they shall say, Peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. Ezekiel chapter 7, verse 26. Mischief shall come upon mischief, and rumor shall be upon rumor. Then shall they seek a vision of the prophet, but the law shall perish from the priest, and counsel from the ancients. In the news, from the CNN, the world's rivers are drying up from extreme weather. A painful lack of rain and relentless heat waves are drying up rivers in the US, Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. Many are shrinking in length and breadth. Patches of riverbed poking out above the water are a common sight. Some rivers are so desiccated, which means dry, they have become virtually impassable. These rivers include the Colorado River, the Yangtze River, the Rhine River, the River Po, the Lori River, and finally the Danube River. All these rivers are currently desiccated due to extreme weather. In other news, also from the CNN, Britain is plunging deeper into crisis by the day, but its government is missing in action. The sense of collapse is only mounting. Health leader on Friday issued the grim warning of a humanitarian crisis without action to stop energy prices increasing over the winter. Matthew Taylor, chief executive of the National Health Service Confederation, said in a statement that many, quote, could face the awful choice between skipping meals to health, or rather to heat, their homes, and having to live in cold, damp, and very unpleasant conditions. These outbreaks will strike just as the NHS is likely to experience the most difficult winter on record. The highly unusual intervention comes after weeks of warning that the UK is at only the start of the worst cost of living crisis for generations. Inflation passed 10% earlier this week, placing a greater strain on households who are already struggling to make ends meet. The country is on track to enter recession, with GDP expected to continue shrinking through the end of the year and beyond. On top of the economic pain, transport and dock workers are striking, and they are warning of future industrial action across the public and private sector. Even some lawyers in criminal cases have gone on strike, causing disruption in the already clogged courts. In other news, also from the CNN, UK inflation could peak next year at 18%, Warren City British consumer price inflation is set to peak at 18%, 9 times the Bank of England's target, in early 2023. An economist at U.S. bank Citi said on Monday, raising his forecast once again in the light of the latest jump in energy prices. With inflation now set to peak substantially higher than the Bank of England's 30% forecast in August, its Monetary Policy Committee was likely to conclude that the risks of more persistent inflation. And what is inflation? Inflation is a general increase in the cost of goods and services due to the expansion of money supply. Hyperinflation is the hyper of that particular thing. Have intensified, the note said. This means getting rates well into restrictive territory and quickly, Nabarro said. Should signs of more embedded inflation emerge, we think bank rate of 6 to 7% will be required to bring inflation dynamically under control. For now, though, we continue to think evidence of such effects are limited, with increases in unemployment still more likely to allow the MPC to pause around the turn of the year, he added. This concludes the article. In other news from the RT, cost of living pushing UK women into prostitution, activists. Women already in the industry are finding themselves unable to turn away dangerous clients, activists warned. Across the board, what we're seeing is people coming to that work from a place of desperation, Adams said. That means they are much less able to protect themselves from violence and exploitation. Pardon me. To further expound upon this article, one woman, Adams, works with, found herself losing hundreds of pounds when the UK's benefits program moved to the universal credit system. Sounds very, very interesting. An ongoing process that the government admits will take 900,000 welfare recipients worse off by the time the switchover is completed. This is nothing more than an example of gradualism towards the MOTB. It reads on to say she stated doing a couple of evenings a week on the streets, just enough to pay each bill, Adams said, adding that with 4 young children at home, the woman had to work outdoors. With inflation in the UK crossing the 10% threshold last month and millions of Britons potentially facing a winter of heat and food shortages, Beyond the Streets, a charity that helps women leave prostitution, is seeing an increase in women selling sexual, or rather survival sex. We call it that because it's the only choice these women can make to survive. It's done to meet basic needs, to have enough money for food and rent. Support worker Nikki McNeil told Sky. Adams added that some of those selling sex are doing so for agencies which often force the women to work in unsafe conditions. So these women are being exploited besides their own desperate attempts of making ends meet to selling their bodies for sex. Okay, some of the women are expected to provide sex without protection, she said. Clients know they are in a position where they can't say no. So some premises are pushing women into those circumstances. In other words, they're being exploited. McNeil said that her organization is lobbying the government to increase benefits beyond the £1,200, which is equivalent to $1,491 in direct payments to low-income households, and $473 in energy payments to vulnerable people that the government has already promised. The government spokesperson told Sky that it recognizes people are struggling with rising prices, and all these things are coming to America, Babylon the Great, in an unprecedented fashion. And fashions, in other headlines, also from the RT, global coffee prices about to soar. WSJ, that is the Wall Street Journal. European gas costs soar as Nord Stream shutdown looms. Also from the Sputnik, will winter of soaring energy costs and looming recession corrode Europe's unity in propping up Kiev? US may default on external debt as printing press in overdrive, Russia Security Council SEC warns. EU's Borrell says US lives, off China's loans. Both countries depend on each other. That will be all for today in the news. Now the Lord's going to conclude this lesson by rereading the scriptures. Ezekiel chapter 7 verse 25. Again it reads, destruction cometh, and they shall seek peace, and there shall be none. So destruction will come during the times and in the form of Jacob's trouble, when the Lord will appoint over the sinners of his people, would say that the evils shall not overtake nor prevent them, in the form of the sword to slay, the dogs to tear, the fowls of the heaven, and the beasts of the earth to devour and destroy, wherein they will die of grievous deaths, according to the book of Jeremiah chapter 16 verse 4. And they shall not be able to escape when destruction cometh. And they shall seek peace, right? So they're also going to attempt to seek peace, but they are not going to be able to find any. And there shall be none. Mischief shall come upon mischief, and rumor shall be upon rumor. And we've been reading about some of these mischiefs and rumors that have been happening around the world in the news. Then shall they seek a vision of the prophet, but the law shall perish from the priest, right? So they won't be able to find the answers from these false prophets and leaders that they look up to when the time of destruction comes, when they will attempt to seek peace and will not be able to find any, when mischief is going to be at its peak and destruction. But the law shall perish from the priest and counsel from the ancients, right? So counsel will also perish from the ancients, because your old men that you people look up to in your so-called small communities and large communities as well, that are of the world, will not have the answers for you as to why all the things that will happen in the near future will be happening, because the Lord has not opened up their eyes to see, to understand, to warn you. Okay, the Lord has only done that to his prophets, and the prophets have been warning you, so-called Negro Latinos and Native American Indians, for decades, beginning with the elder apostles and bishop elders, on down to men of like mind that are scattered here in America, which is Babylon the Great and abroad, and even further, going back to their teachers. Okay, so our people, they have no excuse. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 verse 3, for when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. Right, so they're not going to be able to escape when destruction cometh. Instead, they're going to be caught up and be put to death. Okay, so with that, Lord's lesson was brief, edifying, concise, straight to the point. Until the next, I say shalom to the elect.